So today we're going to do a second hot melt video, and in this video I'm going to show you the simplest way I know to hot melt a driver or a fairway wood. This is going to be something that regardless of your club making abilities, I think you can take on. So let's go. Hi everyone, it's AJ, the Mobile Club Maker. Thanks for watching this video. As always, please, if you enjoy it, like it, share it, or subscribe to the channel down below. So another hot melt video. Well, why do we need another hot melt video, you may be thinking. I was looking back over some of the old stuff I've done, and I looked at that hot melt video and I started thinking to myself, you know what? Even though there's some good information in there, this may be a little bit more complicated than most people are willing to tackle. You know, we talked about using a drill basically to either drill out the hot melt port that may already be in there, or creating your own hot melt port by drilling out the head. And I think a lot of people are probably going to be a little hesitant to take their $400 driver, their $500 driver, and start drilling holes in it, which I can understand that. It's probably a pretty natural reaction. So I was thinking, you know what? I should do another video about hot melt, really just covering the basics and going about it the simplest way possible. Because we didn't really touch on what would be, in my opinion, the simplest way to get into any of these modern heads. It's not available with all of them, but it is with an increasing number of them, and that is a weight screw. A lot of current model, or really models from the last, 3 or 4 generations back, have these little weight screws in them. They can be different sizes, different weights, but what it basically gives you is a way to get into the middle of this head, which is what we want when we're talking about hot melting a golf club. What is hot melt? Well, this right here, in here, this is hot melt. But guess what? This right here, this is also hot melt. This $10 glue gun that you get to glue cotton balls onto cardboard or whatever you're using it for, it's also hot melt. Hot melt is just a generic term referring to any sort of glue that's in some solid state that needs to be heated up to become a liquid so it can be applied. Once it cools down again, it hardens, sticks things together. There's not a huge difference between this hot melt that we use in golf clubs and this hot melt over here that you use in craft projects. The glue is slightly different. It's what's called pressure sensitive. That's basically just saying it's a glue that never really hardens completely. So even if it gets really cold, it's still a little bit tacky. It's got a little bit of give to it, and that's what you want when it goes inside of a golf club, because you're going to be swinging this, over 100 miles an hour, let's say, and banging it against things. So you want something that's going to stay put, stay a little bit soft and sticky to remain where it should in the head. This is what the hot melt looks like. It's not very exciting, just basically a clear glue. This is about 4 grams of hot melt that I put on this piece of cardboard. I would say it's about the size of, say, maybe 5 dimes stacked on top of each other, maybe a little bigger than that, somewhere between a dime and a nickel. Again, this is about 4 grams. So if you put this in a driver, let's say, this would give you a little bit over 2 swing weight points increase in the swing weight. So just as a point of reference for how much glue you're putting into the head, again, this is about 4 grams. What does the hot melt do again? Well, it has a couple of functions. One, like we just said, it can change the weight. You can add weight to a head in a way that you can't see it, so it's not like lead tape or things like that that you stick on the outside. The downside of it is it's obviously far more permanent than lead tape, so you want to be pretty certain that you're going to be keeping this club as is if you're going to hot melt it. The other big thing it does is it changes the sound. It changes the pitch of the club. You know, these modern drivers, they're so big and the metal on them is so thin at this point that they can sometimes have a less than pleasant sound to them. And what that Hotmelt does is basically take some of that vibration out, lowers the pitch a little bit. Very simply, you can think of it like this. You can imagine this can as a driver head. You know, it's a thin metal shell, it's a hollow center. And if I tap it, it has a certain pitch. Now if I take that and I take some Hotmelt, okay, it's gum, but in this case we're going to call it Hotmelt just so we can show what it does. And I stick that on the side, and now I do the same thing. Hopefully you can hear that. It's not ringing out as much, the pitch is a little bit lower. And that's the same thing the Hotmelt is doing, only it's going inside the head. Okay, let's talk about what you're going to need for this. First off, you're going to need a golf club. Again, we are dealing with golf clubs today that have some sort of little weight screw in the back. So I've got this TaylorMade driver we're going to be doing. I also have this Callaway 3-wood, again, weight screw in the back. We're going to do both these clubs. This one has a bonded hosel, so we're going to be doing the whole club in one piece. The TaylorMade obviously has the adjustable hosel, so we could take the shaft out. Makes it a little simpler to deal with that. Second, you're going to need the Hotmelt. This is one version of what you could be using. There's a lot of different variations of the Hotmelt, but the basics are you've got the Hotmelt in some sort of container. These cylinders you can buy run about $15 to $20 per cylinder, and then the dispenser, this one I believe is around $20. You can buy various different kinds of these dispensers. Some of them you can buy are electrified. They heat up basically like that glue gun that you would use for crafts projects, sort of like that, where it heats up, keeps it warm ahead of time. Some of them like this you have to heat up right before you're going to use it. There are also much more advanced, elaborate Hotmelt guns that you can buy running into hundreds of dollars. Really the only difference you're going to find between something like this and say the $600 one that you'll see sometimes on different other YouTube videos or things like that. The $600 one uses bulk Hotmelt. So it uses basically like little pellets or sort of little pillowy sort of looking things that you can dump in to apply the Hotmelt, not these cylinders. So if you're doing a lot of hot melting, and it would have to be a pretty good amount to justify $600, but at a certain point it makes sense because, like I said, these run about $15 to $20 for 50 grams, I think, of Hotmelt. And if you do the bulk, it's like 1/10 of the price. So at a certain point, if you're doing this a lot, it could make sense where you'd want to get the more elaborate, expensive Hotmelt gun. But for what we're doing here, the basics should work fine. Like I said, $15 to $20 for the cylinder, $20 for the dispenser. Next thing you're going to need is something to heat it up with if it's not one that heats itself up. A simple blowtorch like this, or a heat gun, either one will work. You run that over it, and we'll go over how to do that, but that'll get it good and warmed up so we can apply the Hotmelt. Next thing we're going to need masking tape. You're going to be using some masking tape in this to keep the club clean. You're also going to need the wrenches. Depending on the club head, you're going to find you may need different torque wrenches. Certain clubs, like this Callaway was very nice, and this screw here uses the same type, same size torque wrench that you use for their adjustable hosel clubs. So I happen to have a Callaway wrench, which is really the same basic wrench as TaylorMade or any of the other brands. They pretty much use a standard size, most of them. So that wrench will take this screw out, no problem. In other cases, like this TaylorMade They went with a different size. It's a smaller size torque wrench. They also put in what's called a security head, so something like that. It has a little metal pin that sticks up in the middle. Makes it a little more annoying, but you can either buy the security torque wrench bits that have the center hollow in them so that it'll go over that, or you can do what I did, take a little screwdriver, a small screwdriver, and just sort of wiggle that pin back and forth until it breaks out. There's no reason for it to be there. I don't know why you need a security torque wrench to get that out. So you can just wiggle that out and then find the right size bit to get that out. So I've got that right here in this smaller screwdriver. You're also going to need a pencil or a pen, something like that. And then if you have a kitchen scale, some sort of small scale that measures in grams, that will be very helpful to know how much hot melt you've been adding into the club. So something like this, again, not expensive, and you may already have one around the house. This will come in very handy. If you have a big swing weight scale, you can use that too, but probably most people don't necessarily have the swing weight scale. So I've got the small scale. I've also just got this little rubber vise clamp that I'm going to use just to sort of balance the club on the scale when I'm measuring it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is remove these little screws. Like I said, this TaylorMade uses a slightly smaller one than we would use in the Callaway, so we'll take this one out first. Doesn't take too much to get it out. There's no trick to it, you just unscrew it. Okay, that is what the screw looks like. We'll put that aside for right now. And here's the head with the open port into the center. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with this Callaway. Again, the Callaway, we can just use the plain Callaway torque wrench that they give you with any driver or fairway wood that requires it. Again, same basic deal here. We'll take that out quick, get it started, and then take that out. Put that right there. All right, the next step. Here's where the masking tape comes into play. This hot melt is a bit of a sticky mess when it gets on things, so we want to try and avoid that as much as possible. So what we're going to do is get a little masking tape and essentially just cover up our work area. So I'm just taking these two pieces of masking tape, sticking them together like this into one piece of masking tape. Then I'm going to take this and gently cover the port on the outside. Okay? Let's adjust this camera just a touch so you can see that a little better. Okay. Let me move this out of the way for a second. We can move these out of the way. The screws we don't need, and this we don't need. Okay, so here it is. We've got it covered. All right, now here's what I like to do after that. I'm going to take a pencil using the eraser, find the opening here, and I'm just going to use the eraser and push the tape gently down into the hole a little bit. Once it goes down about that far, I'm going to press all this tape down, and then I'm going to use the point of the pencil and just put a hole through there. So now I've not only covered the outside area with masking tape, but I've also got all the threading area covered so we don't get any hot melt in there either. I find this is a good way to just keep everything as clean as we can. Okay, we're going to do the same thing now with the Callaway. Next step is going to be we want to weigh these clubs before we start. I like to weigh them after I've prepped them with the tape and after I've taken the weights out, so I know exactly what the weight is before the hot melt and after the hot melt. If you weigh them without the tape, or you weigh them with the weights still in there, well then you're going to have to start doing some math to figure out where you've started and where you've ended. If you weigh them at this point, then you know exactly, you know, this was 196 grams before. After the hot melt, it's 200 grams. I know I've added 4 grams of hot melt. Let's see, so this is zeroed out now. Let's see what this weighs without the weight in it. And with some tape, we got 192 grams on that one. On the Callaway, I've got to kind of hang it off the end of the bench here because I've still got the head attached to it. So also remember, if you're using some sort of little vice clamp or something to hold the club when you're doing this, remember to zero out your scale before you measure. Otherwise you're going to be measuring the weight of the clamp along with the club. So we're going to put this on here, and I'll just tell you it says 336. So we're 336 for the entire club. Now we're okay, so now we're going to start hot melting. I'm going to do this 3-wood first, and then I will do the driver second. The 3-wood I'm going to add about 5 grams to. The driver I'm just adding a few grams to. They're not really interested in changing the weight so much. They just wanted to try and change the sound a little bit, so that's all we're going to be doing there. Let me turn this camera on again and show you what we're going to do here. Okay, so we've got our torch and we've got our hot melt, and basically we just want to heat this up to the point where it is flowing readily out of here. I always start at the back end, as far back as the hot melt is, which I've marked on this. I know where the plunger is right now, so it's about here. So we're going to start here, heating, and work our way this way. Remember to also heat up this very tip section, because otherwise if this is cold and this is hot, it'll start getting to here, and then all of a sudden it'll start to harden again because it's still cold on the tip. So you want to make sure you heat up the tip section also. Okay, so we're going to heat this up first. Kind of hold it back, keep it moving. Again, you can do this with a heat gun, or you can do it with a torch. Kind of work it back and forth. Remember, this is going to be hot, so don't touch the cylinder portion. And okay, let's see if that was enough. We're going to slide this in here. We can already see the glue is starting to drip out, which is a good sign. We're just going to stick this back here, in here, and give a couple squeezes. Okay. And let's just take a look. You can see there's some of that stringiness, which, again, this is why we want the tape on there. Okay, so we've added a little bit of weight there. Let's go ahead, take a look and see if we got any change in the weight. 336. Yeah, we still got a little ways to go, so we're gonna do a little bit more. Go ahead and heat it up a little bit more. Tip section. Okay. Let's go ahead, put this back in here. You see that? Try and move it to a slightly different spot this time. Okay. Try to get that off there. Let's weigh it one more time. And there we go. Now we got it to right about it's going between 339, 340. That's close enough for what I want there. So we're going to take this club and just set it out of the way here for a moment. Now that we've added the hot melt, what's left to do? Well, we're going to go ahead and take the tape off. Again, if we did this right, as you can see, we took the tape off and the screw hole, the threading is still nice and clean, so we don't need to worry about cleaning that off. We don't need to clean the outside of the head off because we have the tape on there. So we'll go ahead, put the screw back in, get our wrench, and we just want to make it snug. You don't need to over tighten it. That screw is not really going to go anywhere. Same thing with our 3-wood here. We're going to go ahead, we'll take this tape off. Again, you can see I got some of the hot melt there on the tape. I got a little bit loose with my application, but it's basically all there on the tape. And we're screw that in again until it's snug, and there it is when it's all finished. As you can see, we don't have to do any cleanup on the outside of the 3-wood head because we had the tape on there. It's all nice and clean looking, which is beautiful. Here we have that M4. Again, didn't have to do any extra cleanup. If you did get any on there, heat it up a little bit with a heat gun and wipe it off with a little grip solvent, maybe a little acetone if you had to get it off there, being careful of the paint obviously. But again, if you use the tape and you cover your work area, shouldn't really be an issue, and hopefully it'll give you a simpler time when you're all finished. I'm going to go ahead and see if we can tell any sort of difference here. I don't know if we'll be able to hear it or not. We'll see. Okay, so that was it. It's a pretty simple process. Like I said, if you have access to the inside of a driver or fairway wood through one of these little weight screws, it makes it very simple. You don't need a drill, you don't need epoxy to replace the pin that goes into the weight port hole. You just have a screw that you can take out as long as you have the right size wrench, be it either the one that came with the club, if you have a club that is nice enough to give you the same diameter on the weight screw as it is in the hosel. If not, you just find the right torque wrench. It's a pretty simple little tool to find at any hardware store. You can find the right size wrench you're going to need. Take that screw out, cover up your work area with some masking tape, put in the hot melt, screw it back in, and you're ready to go. Very simple. Didn't require me to drill any holes in this $400 head. And so I think, again, this is something that, you know, regardless of whether you've only ever done basic regripping or you reshaft all your clubs and swing weight them and all those things all the time, it's something I think you can do in either case. And just as a new trick to add to your arsenal of club building skills. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you will go and try it. If you've enjoyed this video, again, please like it, share it, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you soon. Keep it in the short grass.